Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about a great person in the world. We know this. In this world, there are so many flowers, but flowers with nice fragrance are rare. Fragrant flowers, beautiful flowers are rare. Just like that, there are lots of people in the world, but people with great human qualities are rare. Today I'm going to talk about such a person with great human qualities, such a great person. He has something different. So far, we have listened to lots of life stories, but in all of those life stories, there is a common feature. All of them were born as poor, but they were died as rich people. So we argue, we have lots of words, we sacrifice, commitment, and we say through their sacrifice, commitment, and dedication, determination, they triumphed their miracles and became rich. So they are great people. But today, this man is such kind of different from those people. When he was born, he was the richest person in Russia, but when he was died, he was the poorest person in Russia. So how come this kind of man become a great person? It's the thing we are going to discuss. His name is Lev Nikolaevich Count Tolstoy. In smart, he is Leo Tolstoy. And I ask you, what do you know about fate? Whatever you know about fate, you will understand the real meaning of fate from his life story. Leo Tolstoy was born on 9th September in 1828 at Yazyana Polyana village in Russia. This is his house, and the record says it was the largest house in Russia. So his father was Nikolai Ilyich Tolstoy and his mother was Maria Nikolaevna Tolstoyevna. He was from a royal family and he was born in a bed of roses. He had mountains of money. His father was a count. Count means very powerful and very rich man, and his mother was a princess. So he was from a royal family and he was born in a bed of roses. But this kind of man was died on 7th November 1910 on a bench at unknown railway station alone as a beggar. So just think, that kind of man was died like this. So you should. So I don't want to grow your curiosity. So let's see about his life story. If we talk about his childhood, in his childhood, fate was really in the opposite side. And when he was 3, his mother died, and when he was 8, his father died. So when he was 8, he was an orphan. He and his brothers were looked after by an auntie called Tatiana. But although his parents died, his treasure did not lack. And he could learn Oriental language and he could learn in his home because he had money, and he learned in his home with teachers. And in 1844, he began studying law and Oriental language at Kazan University. His teachers described him as both unable and unwilling to learn. However, after a few months, he got fed up with his campus university life in the middle of his studies, and he returned to his village. He didn't want his education because he had mountains of money, he had farms, he had land, so he didn't want education very much. So he returned to his village from his campus. Then we come to his teenage life. His teenage life was full of fun. He was really a wasteful man. He didn't hesitate to give up all his money to beautiful girls. He wasted all his money for smoke, drink, gambling, games, and girls. He was really a wasteful man. The situation became worse when a lady called Valaya put an inquiry in the court as she has a child from him. But he could be avoided from it from the power of his money. So, however, with these kinds of things, he became utterly poor. I told you, he had mountains of money, but he wasted all of his mountains of money because of these 4 things: smoke, drink, and gambling games and girls. And however, in 1851, after running up heavy gambling debts, he ran up with his brother from Moscow and attended to the army because he had nothing to do. He wanted to get away from his money problems, so he had only the salary of a soldier after them. Then, if we talk about his first book, during all these problems, he wrote his first book, it's Childhood. And with this book, he wrote a couple of books, Childhood, Boyhood and Youth. It was really an autobiography of him. And he even, in this period, he even wrote How Much Land Does a Man Need, The Cossacks and Youth. These are his great novels, the first novels of his. But these novels made him a bit more rich person as a writer. Then, if you talk about his marriage, on September 23, 1826, Tolstoy married Sofia Andreevna Bers. Her father was a royal doctor and she was from a royal family, very rich family. He was 34 when their marriage, and she was only 16. So, however, there was a big age gap between them, but they married, and we go ahead. Their marriage life, I tell you, they had a great marriage life. Although their age gap was very large, but it didn't affect to their marriage life. They had 14 children, and so this is even a quality which tells that he is a great person. He is very perceptive man, and they lived in joy, and it was his golden era. She was his secretary, proofreader, and financial manager. So she was a good wife in their during their first period of marriage life. However, so in this period, he wrote his greatest novels. It's the greatest novel ever written in the world, War and Peace. War and Peace is generally thought to be one of the greatest novels ever written. It includes 580 characters, and there are facts from Napoleon to Alexander I of Russia. This is War and Peace. Anton Chekhov read this, and he told that what a psychologist. So this was that kind of great novel. And then he wrote Anna Karenina. He proudly said for the first time he had written a great novel. According to his point of view, this was the greatest novel he had written. It tells parallel stories of an adulterous woman trapped by the conventions and falsities of society. However, with these books, War and Peace and Anna Karenina, he could avoid from his many problems. These books were very famous in Russia, and they helped him to overcome his money problems. And then, however, this life in reverse, this is very important point in his life. When everything is correct, we know according to our Buddhism, Prince Siddhartha was in spent very enjoyable life. He had 3 palaces as Ramesura Suba, and he had everything. He had money, but suddenly, that was a sudden thing. He saw a scene. We say that Satara Piranimiti. He saw an old man and a monk and a dead body and a patient. So that sudden thing changed all his life, and he changed his path, and he got rid of all his rich things, and he became a finder of truth. So just like that, Tolstoy, during a tour in ashramas, he was mentally collapsed. Suddenly, he had everything in this time. He had money, he had a good family, he had children, he had wife. But when everything is correct, when everything is right, he had a mental agitation. His mind said that what's the result of this money? We can't bring this money when we die. So what's the usefulness of this money? So that wasteful Tolstoy turned into a perceptive man after this thinking, after this mental agitation. he began to dedicate all his money to poor. He thought as he thought about the social degradation and social gap. He wanted to fulfill that, and he could write his great plays in this period. Most of them was about social degradation and the difference between poor and rich. If we talk about some of them, A Confession and Resurrection, and even The Kingdom of God is Within You, Father Sergius and Hadiji Murat. And The Three Questions, this is very famous one, and The Last Station and The Gospel in Brief. These are his great plays about social degradation and social gap, which was written in this period. And he was a wizard in writing stories for children. I know you have even read his Aesop's folk stories, and he wrote these hill folk and stories for children and tortured novel like this. He knew the style which should be for the children, and classic tales and fables for children. These are his child stories. His amazing writing skills even achieved the family life, and with his experience even he wrote these things. Okay, and if we talk about his record, however, this man wrote 14 novels, 62 short stories, and 7 plays, including the greatest novel written ever, War and Peace. So, he was a huge writer in Russia. And if we talk about his quotes, he had told lots of important quotes which were very famous in the history. His famous quote is 3 questions. The first question, how to tell the right time for every deed. The second one, how to know who are the most essential people. The third one, how to decide which pursuits are the most important. The 3 answers: the most important time is now, the most important person is the one you are with, the most important pursuit is to do good to that person. This was very famous saying, and then among his quotes, everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. And there is not greatness where there is no simplicity. All happy families resemble one another. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. There are very hidden meanings in those quotes. And when you love someone, you love the person as they are, and not as you would like them to be. Love is life. Everything I understand only because I love. It's hard to love a woman and do anything. He had told the truth, and God sees the truth but waits. This was even his story. This is a quote which was got from his story. And if so many men, so many minds, certainly so many hurts, so many kinds of love. This is very important to girls. And it's God's will. You can die in your sleep, and God can spare you in battle. And we are asleep until we fall in love. Very important one. So these kinds of quotes were on by him. And he understood the real meaning of life and helped the poor to overcome their problems. I told you about his mental agitation, and he did not hesitate to give all his money to them. He wanted to fulfill the social gap. As a result of this, his wife and children started to forsake him. Do you know it's the feature of a wife? If their husbands began to dedicate all their money to poor, any wife can't be patient. So his wife was correct at the point, but she could have understand this man. This man wanted to help others, but his wife and started forsaking him. His deed made him rich in person, but poor in his family life. His wife never agreed to give their money to poor. At last, they went away from him. The greatest author in the world became alone in his home, in his palace. If we talk about his last moment, He was really helpless. His wife and the children went away from him. He was alone in his home. He was really helpless. And on 28th of October 1910, he came out from his palace alone, only with his dress and the drama script which he was writing. The most richest man in the Russia when he was born. And he reached a railway station and spent his last few days on a bench there. This was that railway station. On 7th of November 1910, it was announced that an old beggar was tied on a bench at an unknown railway station of Russia. You can understand. He had to die on a bench. He had to spend his last day in that situation. Russian Empire rose, but the greatest writer had died. It was late then. They did his funeral with the greatest respect, but nothing. But he spent his last days in really a stormy period, and because of his wife, this happened. So, just think, my dear friends, what kind of a great man. Look at him, very smart looking, noble. This kind of man had to die like this kind of man. Why? Because of a girl. So I warn you, beware of four things: beware of drink, beware of smoke, beware of dogs, and beware of girls. It will be your success. So thank you all.